Hey, Nick, welcome back.
Hey, Kerry, great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Hey, always a pleasure. So, what's going on with these markets here? You're predicting that things are going to go higher in the stock market. How can that be?
Well, I think they're going to go higher, but not just yet. So I think we still got to buy ourselves another month or two here. But ultimately, yeah, I do think they're going to go higher. We're going to get a big fall rally, and markets will go higher right into next year. And we're seeing, on the charts right now, just a lot of higher lows, and we're testing that January top. So in reality, we've been in a range really since late January when the market peaked on the S&P 500. But at this stage of the game, when you look at the S&P, we're just really testing those highs, but we can't get through them yet. And I think it's going to be just a little bit more time, and then we will see them go higher as we get into the October, November timeframes.
Yeah, so we got a little bit to go. So we're summer doldrums here, still kind of sideways market.
Yeah, a little bit of a summer doldrum. We get some light volume days, but then, we could get a tweet or two and things can get a little bit crazy or hectic, and you'll hear about trade wars or something else. So it's a little bit more amplified this year than the past month of August. Month of August generally is what we do refer to as the summer doldrums, where trading volumes are very, very light, and you have money managers going away for the summer holidays, taking a little break before Labor Day, and I think we're still seeing that, but this year around, I think people are a little bit more on edge as you have President Trump coming up to meet with the Chinese, and you have a lot of tariff wars and trade wars and a whole bunch of stuff going on geopolitically around the globe. So it makes it a little bit more interesting this year.
Yeah, well, I've always felt that this trade war thing was overblown. It's an economic war that we've been in with China since Nixon opened up trade. With IT theft and all of that stuff. And the fact is, there's not really going to be a trade war because they got nothing to gain by it. That's the fact of the matter. So we're going to see we'll see a face-saving maneuver because the Asians are very big on saving face, but then they're going to do what Trump has been wanting them to do all along. Maybe they'll only buy 200 billion instead of 300 billion worth of goods this year. But hey, I think the biggest thing was when they refused to take our garbage anymore. That was our fifth biggest export to China was recyclables, so-called recyclables. And if you care about the environment at all, then you know that recycling is a complete scam and is an ecological nightmare. But be that as it may, I think the nerve of them to not take our garbage, Nick, how could they do that?
Well, I'm not sure, but I will say this. What President Trump is doing right now is really, I don't even think it's about trade. What I think it's about is own intellectual property for these tech companies that seem to bash him each and every day, yet he's out there protecting them. And he's also protecting Hollywood so that they can't, pirate a movie before it even is released in the theaters. So I think this is really all about intellectual property. And if you take a look at the Shanghai Composite recently, you're going to notice that they're in what we call a major correction / something worse, and the U.S. economy is testing near all-time highs. So I think President Trump has done a good job here, and even though he doesn't get any credit for it in the mainstream media, the reality of it is he's winning this, and this will be settled probably within the next 60 days, in my opinion.
Yeah, if they want 10 million people unemployed, because look, the trade deficit's so high, if we just put 50% or 25% tariff on every Chinese good coming into the United States, and it can be done, yeah, it's going to hurt. Your iPhone's going to go up in price. So's your Android, for that matter. But other countries will take up the slack, and they will have 20 million people unemployed in China within a matter of a short couple of months. I think that's what their market is telling them there. And not that I believe that trade should be used as a weapon. I don't, but it's been used as a weapon against the U.S. here for a couple of generations. So why should we be idiots any longer? And that's really the message here of Trump, right?
Absolutely. And, just to go back to a point you were just making is that, the retail companies, you would think would suffer the worst from this, and they're really not. What they have been doing is telling their suppliers, hey, let's not get Chinese goods. Let's get goods from Vietnam. Let's get goods from Thailand. Let's get goods from Cambodia. Yeah. Sure. Let's get goods from surrounding areas, and we'll avoid China altogether. And that's going to hurt the Chinese as well. And I think the Chinese are starting to wake up and smell the coffee about what's happening here. So it doesn't mean that the Chinese economy is going to plunge, but it's already been falling pretty sharply, and they have a terrible shadow banking system over there. I think they are in some serious trouble unless they agree to cooperate. And the funny thing is, a lot of people in the media will knock Trump, but the reality of it is we can't sell a car with the same tariff price that we allow cars to come in to the United States. So he's leveling the playing field, and that's really the bottom line. And I don't think any president has ever even tried this. So let alone since the last 20 years that China has been in the World Trade Organization, no president has even attempted to do what Trump is doing.
Hey, and you know what? The EU capitulated. They caved. And I totally believe that the Chinese are going to cave also, but in such a way that they'll be able to claim some type of victory, because that's the Asian mindset. Like the West is built on humiliating your adversaries and accepting humiliation at times. That's just the way it works. But in Asia, it's always you have to retain face at all costs, even if you get pushed into doing things that you don't want to do. It's all about face. So let's look at some of our markets here. Oil's taken a hit. What's with oil?
Yeah, oil right now is very, very close to a breakdown, but it hasn't completely broken down. So I think around this $64 to $65 level, traders, if they look at a chart, will see that we have a daily chart 200 period moving average. If by some chance, though, we do close below that level, that will be very negative for oil. It will immediately send oil down to the $59 level. Right now, today, we have crude oil trading at around $65. So oil could have more downside, but it's hanging on by a shoestring at the moment. I personally am not a fan of crude oil. I don't think I think we're floating in it, and there's plenty of it. So, it's going to be all about the geopolitical events in the Middle East, and that's keeping a real bid in oil right now. If we get those problems resolved over there, I think we're going to see crude oil a heck of a lot lower in 2019, 2020.
Hey, regardless what the rest of the world's doing, production in the U.S., and I've heard from the so-called experts, keeps going up against all rational expectations. They've been telling me for years,
right.
Fracking wells have shorter lives and you got to keep drilling and blah, blah, blah. And yet the technology has stayed ahead of the curve and the production keeps going up. Now, one market I know we watch it really closely, copper. Copper has gotten slammed. It's really taken a hit. And is that the China story? What are we looking at here with copper, Nick?
Yeah, so copper has fallen sharply really since June, July time period. That's when it was trading, at its peak. And now we've had a huge fall in copper. In fact, today copper futures today are trading at around 266. Believe it or not, we were trading at around 332 just a couple months ago. For those of you that don't know the market, that's a huge decline. But what's happened is the dollar has strengthened so much that has hurt copper. And then you have China slowing, that has also hurt copper. So it's been a double-edged sword there in the throat of copper, and that's exactly what happened. But I still think the dollar is still strong. If it consolidates more, it has more to go, and that still could hurt copper regardless. So you're going to need to see China really make a bounce back, and that could help things a little bit. But the reality of it is the dollar is very, very strong right now, and anything in the metal complex is going to struggle to go higher at this stage of the game.
And talk about the dollar. So obviously the Chinese could really put a hurt on the dollar if they tried, right? And they've been building this alternative system with varying levels of success, alternative financial system. But, I think while many countries of the world don't trust the U.S., they do trust the financial system. that's based upon the U.S. dollar. I don't know that the yuan, the renminbi, is ever going to get to that point. But, they could sell off a lot of T-bills and American investments, send markets reeling, and yet they won't do it, will they?
No. Well, here's the scenario, at least my take on it. Right now, you have a low corporate tax rate in the United States. We have 21%. Potentially in a year or two, that could even go lower. Business is coming into the U.S. There's nothing out there right now that can stop it. So that's the bottom line. I don't think, any kind of extra reserve currency is going to do the trick. In fact, even gold, which I own, gold bullion and silver bullion myself personally, is going lower because the dollar is so strong. The reason why the dollar is strong is not for any other reason that money is coming into the United States, and that's really the end. And yeah, that's really all it has to. The real story. I mean, money is coming into the U.S. and people are buying dollars, and then you have places going. In Turkey, you have Iran. These people are hoarding dollars right now.
Dollarization.
The dollar is the king right now. That's it. It's the only trusted currency out there.
Yeah, it's the they always say the cleanest shirt in the laundry or the best looking horse in the glue factory, and there is some truth to that because we do have problems here. But if some of his policies actually happen, where we have increased economic activity, if we get up to that 4 or 5% GDP rate and keep it there, we're going to see massive increases in tax dollars coming in to the U.S. government. And don't forget, I wrote this article, Get Ready for the Trump Tax Cuts Part 2. Right, I think we'll see a lot of small business tax cuts to equalize the rate with the big companies. And I think that we're going to see a lot of economic activity that was never dreamed of.
Well, if you just look at the Russell 2000, and the Russell 2000 represents the small cap companies in the United States. When people buy the Russell 2000, they're not looking to buy a stock for a dividend or anything like that. What they're looking for is growth. The Russell 2000, since President Trump has been in office, has been the outperformer. It's been better than the NASDAQ. Yes. It's been better than anything. In fact, it's just these companies are just going to pay a 21% tax rate, and with a stronger dollar, they're going to be able to buy more goods abroad and sell it. So again, when you look at the Russell 2000, that's telling you the exact story of what's going on in this country, and it's a leading indicator as far as I'm concerned. The leading indicator even on an intraday basis, let alone you look at a bigger time frame period. And the Russell 2000 continues to remain right near its all-time highs at the moment.
It's an amazing thing because you would have never expected this. Even before Trump was inaugurated, who would have expected this, Nick? I mean, he was going to destroy the economy, according to Krugman. He was just going to do so much damage to the country. And yet now we're looking at a boom that we haven't seen. We've got optimism. And look, the biggest thing in an economic downfall or depression, the depression isn't just the economic numbers. It's in the nation's psyche. It's in the individual's mind that they just expect things to get worse and worse. And to some extent, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course, there's economic realities that are ignored at your peril, but a lot of it is just mass psychology.
Absolutely. And in fact, the last time I was on your program, I think I talked about going to my boat dealer to get the engine serviced. I'm due for an engine service. And the dealer said, hey, I can't get you in till October. And I've been calling, periodically saying, hey, I'm getting up there in the hours. I need this engine service. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we got you penciled in for October. Nothing has changed. So that goes to show you how busy many businesses are in the United States. And it's quite incredible, and it's refreshing to see, quite honestly. And I just, whether somebody has a bad opinion about Trump or a good opinion, I just think it's great that we finally have a president that's actually doing what he says he's going to do. I mean, he ran a campaign, and he's probably fulfilled more. He checked the boxes off more than any other president I can remember in my lifetime. So it's been quite refreshing to see.
Hey, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, yeah, we've never had any politicians who actually kept their promises. Just never happened in my lifetime. I got a couple of years on you, Nick. every single one that we ever elected. Even Reagan, who was better at it than most, but Reagan still was a conventional politician when you got down to it. And,
yes,
he had unconventional ideas, but he worked within the existing framework, and his enemies were able to stop him from achieving much of what he attempted to because he was a politician. Trump, not being a politician or being an anti-politician, is willing to take far greater risks to accomplish far greater things than any other politician that I've ever seen take office.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think these politicians thought they'd have him out of there in, 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And here he is weathering every storm. And you know what? He's isolated himself with some really good people. I'm really a big fan of Wilbur Ross as a trader.
Yeah,
he's a trader.
Absolutely.
I think he has a great understanding of economics, and the guy has made money in distressed debt throughout his life around the globe.
Uh-huh.
And then I even like Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, even though he had a little part-time gig producing movies in Hollywood, he's got a big understanding of taxes. He understands what it takes to get the economy. And so I think Trump has some really good people around him. Obviously, Carl Icahn's another that he's advised with, and he has spoken with, I'm sure, on numerous times. So these are all good money people, and they understand economics, and they understand the economic engine, and that is something that's quite refreshing.
Yeah, well, look, we go back to the former occupant of the office. He had a bunch of academic socialists that either didn't understand economics or refused to understand. He had the Krugmans of the world, and the results were disastrous.
I'm going to refrain from comment.
Hey, but the results were nothing short of disastrous. I mean, that we can all agree on. We had the lowest growth ever. We had declining workforce participation rate. It started to go up, and maybe not meaningfully, but that's because a lot of my fellow baby boomers, a lot of you out there, the economy's gotten better, your investments are better, you're retiring like you plan to, and Gen X, the millennials are just starting to get off their student loans and start to actually get meaningful employment. A lot of things are happening why that rate is going to progress slowly, but the quality is certainly there, and we're just going to see a lot of this. So, hey, Nick, so what is the best market out there to be looking at till the end of the year?
Well, I think, we've had such a rotation this year. So you have had money come out of one sector, go into another sector. Now, recently, we've had money come out of technology. It has gone into banks. Now we're starting to see the banks plateau a little bit, and we're going to see money go into the next area. It's really stock picking this year. You got to really pick your places. And I think that's the best and only way to do it. But if you want to just really be a little bit conservative, what you could do is just go into the S&P 500 stocks. Look for stocks that are beaten down. Those are the stocks that you're going to want going into the new year. And again, right now I've been compiling a list. I have my notebook in front of me. I've got about over 400 stocks here that I'm just waiting to see if they can get down to certain levels, and I start picking them off one by one. And that's what you want to do in a year like this. You just want to find anything that is a solid company that's beaten down and get ready, and you'll see that big fall advance once this is all worked out with China, and I believe it will be by election time, and I think we're going to get a pretty big advance going into 2019.
Hey, what about North Korea here? That's been a big thing. Now we hear nothing in the news about it, which must mean that things are going pretty well, because otherwise, if they weren't, we'd be hearing about it nonstop, right?
I agree. I agree 100%. The media can't wait to say something negative, and lately you've been hearing, Russia and China are feeding North Korea, but honestly, I think things are going well. I don't think there's been we haven't seen any missiles shoot off into the area of the Japanese or South Koreans. But there's no positive press there. So the reality of it is things must be going well, and I think when John Kim over there got a little taste of President Trump's lifestyle, he said, "What am I doing?" He goes, "I could be living like this instead. I'm living in fear." And I think I think North Korea is ready to take the next step into becoming, a more capitalist society. And, it's not going to be an easy first step, but, if you look at their neighbors to the south, South Korea certainly has, a great economy, and they're producing tons and tons of products. I think North Korea is seeing that now for themselves and saying, you know what, we could be doing this. And I really love what was done. I think it was fantastic, and I hope it progresses forward, and I believe it will.
And no more being pawns of the Chinese, because that's what the North Koreans have been for years and years and years here. Let's face it. That's
absolutely.
They're just a tool of Chinese policy, and I think they've had it. And I think they're done with it, and now they're ready to join. It seems to me they sent back remains of troops. When they pull back their artillery from the DMZ, then you're going to know that this is for real. Anyways, so gold, we got to wait a while, but it's going to hit its low point probably very quickly. And precious metals, so as good as Trump is, he can't turn the economic tide against depreciating fiat currencies, right?
No. But the reality of it is, when you look at industry, you look at business, you look at the dollar, you look at the corporate tax rate, all of these things are positives for the United States. And in my opinion, the United States is keeping the world running. And I know as much as bad as the press is against President Trump, CNN in particular, you know what? They can't deny what's happening right now. And you have unemployment. People are working. People are out there getting jobs, and technology is very, very strong. You're seeing, all of these different industry groups doing very, very well. And watch the car industry. That's one area that I'm looking to get. I've already started to nibble on Fiat Chrysler. I'm going to buy some General Motors. But you want to watch the car industry. Once China lowers their tariffs to 2% on